All right, we're here to read chapter 3, which is called Christmas Dinner, and this follows chapter 2, which was Christmas Night. In the book, The Saga of Gösta Berling by Selma Lagerlöf. So, chapter 3, Christmas Dinner. On Christmas Day, Majoress Samzelius gives a great dinner at Akeby. She presides as hostess at a table set for 50 guests. She sits there in brilliance and splendor. The short sheepskin, striped woolen stockings, and chalk pipe are nowhere to be seen. She rustles in silk. Gold weighs down her bare arms. Pearls cool her white neck. Where then are the cavaliers? Where are they who drank a toast to the new masters of Akeby on the sooty floor of the smithy from a scoured copper kettle? The cavaliers are sitting at a separate table in a corner by the tiled stove. On this day there is no room for them at the great table. To their table food arrives late, the wine sparingly. The glances of the beautiful women are not sent in that direction. No one there listens to Gösta's jokes. But the cavaliers are like tamed foals, like satisfied beasts. The night only gave them an hour's sleep. Then they went to the early morning Christmas service, illuminated by torches and stars. That sounds nice. They saw the Christmas candles. They heard the Christmas hymns. Their faces were like those of smiling children. They forgot Christmas night in the smithy, the way you forget a bad dream. The majoress at Akeby is great and powerful. Who dares lift an arm to strike her? Who dares move his tongue to bear witness against her? Certainly not the poor cavaliers, who for many years have eaten her bread and slept under her roof. She puts them where she wants. She can close her door to them when she wants, and they are not even able to escape her power. God have mercy on their souls. They could not survive far from Akeby. The guests are enjoying themselves at the great table. There Marianne Sinclair's beautiful eyes are shining. There the low laughter of the happy Countess Dona resounds. But among the cavaliers the mood is gloomy. What would it cost for those who were to be thrown into the abyss for the majoress to be allowed to sit at the same table as her other guests? What kind of mean business is this, with the table in the corner by the tile stove, as if the cavaliers were not worthy of being in the company of respectable people? The majoress prides herself on sitting between the count at Borg and the dean in Bro. The cavaliers hang their heads like disowned children, and as time passes, the night's thoughts awaken in them. The merry flashes of wit, the lusty exaggerations, arrive at the table in the corner by the tiled stove like timid guests. There the wrath of the night and its promises make their way into their brains. Squire Julius leads the strong captain, Christian Berg, to believe that there will not be enough of the grilled grouse now being passed around the large table for all the dinner guests. But this provokes no delight. There won't be enough, he says. I know how many they have, but they haven't been at a loss about what to do, Captain Christian. They've grilled crows for us here at the little table. But Colonel Berenkreuz's lips curl only into a faint smile under the forbidding mustache, and Gösta looks as though he were thinking about murdering someone the whole time. Why shouldn't all the food be good enough for the cavaliers? He asks. Finally, a plate heaped with splendid grouse arrives down at the little table. But Captain Christian is angry. Hasn't he devoted a lifetime of hatred for crows, those ugly, cawing, flying insects? He hated them so bitterly that he would put on a woman's long garment in the autumn and tie a kerchief around his head and make himself ridiculous to every man just to get within shooting range of them, where they were eating grain in the fields. He sought them out at the courting dance on the bare fields in the spring and killed them. He sought them out in their nests in the summer and evicted the shrieking featherless chicks or crushed the unhatched eggs. Now he snatches the plate of grouse. Don't you think I recognize them? He roars at the servant. Do I have to hear them cawing to recognize them? Damnation, serving Christian Berg crow. Damnation. And with that, he takes the grouse one by one and heaves them against the wall. Damnation, he shouts as he does so that the room rocks. Serving Christian Berg crow. Damnation. And in the same way that he used to hurl helpless crow chicks against the rocks, now he lets grouse after grouse swish towards the wall. Gravy and fat are flying all around him. The crushed birds bounce to the floor. And the cavalier's wing rejoices. Then the majoress's angry voice penetrates to the cavalier's ears. Throw him out, she calls to the servants. But they won't dare approach him. He is Christian Berg, after all, the strong captain. Throw him out! He hears the shout, and terrible in his wrath, he now turns towards the majoress. The way a bear turns from one fallen enemy to the new attacker, he goes up to the horseshoe-shaped table. The huge man's steps thunder heavily against the floor. He stops across from her with the tabletop between them. Throw him out! The majoress roars yet again. But he is furious. His furrowed brow, his large clenched fists inspire fear. He is a giant in stature, a giant in strength. Guests and servants shudder and dare not touch him. Who would dare touch him now, when rage has taken his senses? He stands right in front of the majoress and shakes his fist at her. I took the crow and threw it against the wall. Do you think I did the right thing? Get out, Captain. Watch it, hag. Serve Christian Berg crow. Would I be doing the right thing if I were to take you with your 7 damned... Hell's bells, Christian Berg. Don't swear. No one swears here but me. Do you think I'm afraid of you, troll hag? Do you think I don't know how you got your 7 ironworks? Silence, Captain! When Altringer died, he gave them to your husband, because you had been his lover. He said it out loud on Christmas. Won't you be quiet, she said. Because you had been such a faithful wife, Margareta Samzelius, and the major accepted the 7 ironworks and let you run them and pretended to know nothing. And Satan has been responsible for the whole business. But now it will be over for you. The majoress sits down. She is pale and trembling. Then she confirms in a soft, peculiar voice, yes, now it's over for me, and this is your doing, Christian Berg. At that tone, Christian Berg begins to tremble. His facial features are contorted, and tears of dread come to his eyes. I am drunk, he shouts. I don't know what I'm saying. I haven't said a thing. A dog and a thrall. A dog and a thrall. I've been nothing more to her for 40 years. She is Margareta Selsing, whom I have served all my life. I say nothing bad about her. Could I say anything bad about the beautiful Margareta Selsing? I am the dog who guards her door, the thrall who carries her loads. She may kick me, she may beat me. Now you see that I endure in silence. I have loved her for 40 years. How could I say anything bad about her? And a strange sight it is to see how he gets down on his knees and begs for forgiveness. And as she is sitting on the other side of the table, he goes on his knees around the table until he approaches her, when he bows down and kisses the hem of her skirt, and the floor is wet with his tears. But not far from the majoress sits a small, strong man. He has curly hair, small slanted eyes, and a protruding jaw. He resembles a bear. He is a man of few words, who prefers to go his own silent way and let the world take care of itself. He is Major Samzelius. He gets up when he hears Captain Christian's accusatory words, and the majoress gets up, as do all 50 guests. The women weep with alarm for what is now to come. The men stand timidly, and at the majoress's feet is Captain Christian, kissing the hem of her skirt, wetting the floor with his tears. The major's broad, hairy hands clench slowly. His arm is raised. But the woman speaks first. She has a muted tone in her voice, which is not her usual. "You stole me," she burst out. "You came like a robber and took me. They forced me at home with blows, with hunger and harsh words, to become your wife. I have acted towards you as you have deserved." The major's broad fist clenched. The majoress retreats a few steps, and then she speaks again. "Live eels wriggle under the knife. A forced wife takes a lover. Are you going to strike me now for what happened 20 years ago? Why didn't you strike me then? Don't you recall how he was living at Akeby while we were at Fr? Don't you recall how he supported us in our poverty? We rode in carriages. We rode in his carriages. We drank his wine. Did we hide anything from you? Weren't his servants your servants? Didn't his gold weigh down your pocket? Didn't you accept the 7 ironworks? You kept silent then and accepted them, when you should have struck, Bert Samzelius, when you should have struck." The man turns away from her and looks at all those present. He reads in their faces that they agree with her, that they all thought he had taken property and gifts for his silence. "I didn't know it," he says, stomping the floor. "It is good that you know it now," she interjects with a shrilly resounding voice. "I used to be afraid that you would die without having found it out. It is good that you know it now, so that I can speak freely with you, who have been my lord and jailer. Know it now that in any case I was his, from whom you stole me. May they who have slandered me all know it now." It is her old love that exalts in her voice and shines from her eyes. Her husband stands before her with raised fist. She discerns horror and contempt on the 50 faces before her. She senses that it is the final hour of her power. But she cannot keep from rejoicing as she speaks openly of her life's sweetest memory. "He was a man, a splendid man. Who are you that you could put yourself between us? Never have I seen the like of him. He gave me happiness. He gave me property. Blessed be his memory." Then the major lowers his arm. He lowers his raised arm without striking. Now he knows how he should punish her. "Out," he roars. "Out of my house." She stands still. But the cavaliers stand, faces pale, staring at each other. Now everything was about to be fulfilled as the Black One had foretold. Now they saw the consequences of the majoress's contract not having been renewed. If this is true now, then it must also be true that for more than 20 years she had sent cavaliers to hell, and that journey had been prescribed for them too. Oh, that witch! "Out with you," continued the major. "Beg for your bread on the highway. You shall not have any happiness from his money. You shall not be allowed to live on his estates. It is over for the majoress at Akeby. The day you set foot in my house, I am going to kill you. Are you driving me away from my home? You have no home. Akeby is mine." A spirit of timidity comes over the majoress. She retreats all the way to the door, and he follows closely after her. "You who have been the misfortune of my life," she complains, shall you also have the power to do this to me now? Out! Out!" She leans against the doorpost, clasping her hands together and holding them to her face. She thinks of her mother and mumbles to herself, "May you be denied, as I have been denied. May the highway be your home, a haystack your bed. So it has come to pass, after all. It has come to that." You know, her mother said that. Her mother was right. You know? "It was the good old dean at Bro and the sheriff from Munkerud who now came up to Major Samzelius and tried to calm him. They told him that he would do best in letting all these old stories rest. Let everything be as it was. Forget and forgive. He shakes away the gentle hands from his shoulder. He was terrible to come near, just as Christian Berg had been. This is not an old story, he shouts. I have not known a thing before today. Until now, I have not been able to punish the adulteress. With that word, the majoress raises her head and regains her former courage. Sooner you should leave than I. Do you think I'll give in to you? She says, and she steps away from the door. The major does not reply, but he watches her every movement, ready to strike if he cannot be rid of her in any other way. Help me, good gentlemen, she cries, to get this man bound and carried out until he regains the use of his mind. Remember who I am and who you are. Think about that before I have to give in to him. I run all the activities of Akaby, and he sits all day long feeding the bears in their cave. Help me, good friends and neighbors. There will be misery without limit here if I am no longer here. The farmer has his livelihood from cutting my forest and driving my pig iron. The charcoal burner lives off of providing my charcoal. The log floater from transporting my timber. I am the one who doles out the work that brings in the riches. Smiths, carpenters, and loggers live by serving me. Do you think that he over there can keep up my work? I'm telling you, if you drive me out, you're letting famine in. Once again, a number of hands are raised to help the majoress. Once again, gentle hands are placed persuasively on the major's shoulder. No, he says, away with you. Who wants to defend the adulteress? I'm telling you I am, that if she does not go willingly, then I will pick her up in my arms and carry her down to my bears. With these words, the raised hands are lowered. Then, in her utmost distress, the majoress turns to the cavaliers. Would you also allow me to be driven from my home, cavaliers? Have I let you freeze outside in the snow in winter? Have I denied you bitter beer and sweet liquor? Did I expect reward or work from you because I gave you food and clothing? You know, they grew hops at all of the farms there so they could preserve food. It made food taste bitter, like bitter beer, but also kind of taste good, some people think. But, you know, at that time, they didn't have so many ways to preserve food, so they grew hops. Now, did I expect reward or work from you because I gave you food and clothing and bitter beer? Have you not played at my feet, secure as children at their mother's side? Hasn't there been dancing in my halls? Haven't amusements and laughter been your daily bread? Let not this man, who has been my life's misfortune, drive me away from my home, cavaliers. Do not let me become a beggar on the highway. With these words, Gösta Berling had stolen his way over to a lovely, dark-haired girl who was sitting at the great table. You were at Borg quite a bit 5 years ago, he says. Do you know whether it was the majoress who told Ebba Dona that I was a defrocked minister? Help the majoress, Gösta, is all the girl can answer. You may know that first I want to find out if she made me into a murderer. Ah, Gösta, what kinds of thoughts are those? Help her, Gösta. You know, Gösta wants to know if the majoress had betrayed him by giving out this information a few years ago, because he's trying to decide which side he wants to be on. You don't want the answer, I see. You don't want to answer, I see. So Sintram has probably told the truth. And Gösta goes back down among the cavaliers. He does not lift a finger to help the majoress. Oh, if only the majoress had not sat the cavaliers at a separate table over in the corner by the tiled stove. Now the knight's thoughts have wakened in their brains. Now wrath is flaring on their faces, not less than the major's own. In unmerciful hardness they stand silent at her entreaties. Must everything they see attest to the visions of the night? It shows that she hasn't got her contract renewed, murmurs one. Go to hell, troll hag, shrieks another. By rights, it should have been us who chased you to the door. Blockheads, old feeble Uncle Eberhard calls to the cavaliers. Don't you realize that it was Sintram? Of course we understand, of course we know, answers Julius. But what of it? Can't it be true anyway? Doesn't Sintram do the devil's business? Haven't they made an agreement? Go then, Eberhard. You go and help her, they mock. You don't believe in hell. Go then. And Gösta Berling stands quietly, without a word, without a movement. No, from this threatening, murmuring, combative cavalier's wing, the majoress will get no help. Now she again backs up to the door and raises her clasped hands to her eyes. May you be denied, as I have been denied, she calls out to herself in bitter sorrow. May the highway be your home, and a haystack your bed. Then she places one hand on the door handle, but the other she raises towards the sky. Mark this, you who now let me fall. Mark this, that your hour will soon come. Now you will be scattered, and your place will stand empty. How will you stand when I do not support you? You, Melchior Sinclair, who has a heavy hand and lets his wife feel it. Watch out. You, Minister of Broby, now comes the punishment. Mrs. Captain Ugla, see to your house. Poverty is coming. You, young beautiful women, Elizabeth Dona, Marianne Sinclair, Anna Stjernhög, do not believe that I am the only one who must flee from my home. And watch you, you cavaliers. Now a storm is coming across the land. Now you will be wiped away from the earth. Now your day is past. Now it is truly past. I do not complain for myself, but for you, for the storm will pass over your heads. And who will stand when I have fallen? And my heart laments for the poor people. Who will give them work when I am gone? Now the majoress opens the door, but then Captain Christian raises his head and says, How long must I lie here at your feet, Margareta Salsing? Will you not forgive me, so that I may stand up and fight for you? Then the majoress fights a hard battle with herself, but she sees that if she forgives him, then he will rise up and fight with her husband, and the man who has faithfully loved her for 40 years will become a murderer. Shall I forgive now too, she says. Are you not the cause of all my misfortune, Christian Berg? Go to the cavaliers, and be pleased with your work. Then the majoress left. She left calmly, leaving dismay behind her. She fell, but she was not without greatness, even in her degradation. She did not lower herself to effeminate sorrow, but still, in old age, she rejoiced over the love of her youth. She did not lower herself to complaint and piteous weeping as she left everything. She did not tremble at the thought of wandering around the countryside with walking stick and beggar's pouch. She only felt sorry for the poor farmers and the happy, carefree people on the shore of Leuven, for the poor cavaliers, for all of those whom she had protected and maintained. She was abandoned by everyone, and yet she had power to reject her last friend so as not to make him a murderer. She was a remarkable woman, great in vigor and desire for action. We will not soon see her like. The next day, Major Samzelius departed from Ekeby and moved to his own farm, Frö, which is very close to the main ironworks. In Altringer's will, through which the major got the ironworks, it was clearly arranged that none of the works could be sold or given away, but rather after the major's death they would all go in inheritance to his wife or her heirs. As the major thus could not embezzle the hated inheritance, he put the cavaliers to rule over it, that he might thereby do Ekeby and the other 6 ironworks the greatest damage. As no one in the province doubted that the malevolent Sintram did the devil's business, and as everything he had promised them was so brilliantly fulfilled, the cavaliers were quite certain that the contract would be fulfilled to the letter, and they were completely decided not to do anything wise or useful or womanish during the year, completely convinced, as they were, that the majoress was an evil witch who wanted their ruin. Old Uncle Eberhard, the philosopher, ridiculed their faith. But who asked the opinion of such a person, who was so stubborn in his disbelief that if he was lying in the midst of the flames of the abyss and saw all the devils standing and sneering at him, he would still have maintained that they did not exist, because they could not exist, because Uncle Eberhard was a great philosopher. Gösta Berling did not tell anyone what he believed. It is certain that he scarcely felt a debt of gratitude to the majoress for having made him a cavalier at Ekeby. It seemed better to him now to be dead than to continue on with the awareness that he had been guilty of Ebba Dona's suicide. He did not raise his hand to take revenge on the majoress, but not to help her either. He was not capable of it, but the cavaliers had come to great power and glory. Christmas was at hand, with parties and amusements. The hearts of the cavaliers were filled with rejoicing, and whatever sorrow may have weighed in on Gösta Berling, he did not show it on his face or on his lips. That was the end of chapter 3, Christmas Dinner. That was quite a Christmas dinner. I've never had a Christmas dinner like that. And next up, in the next installment, we're going to have chapter 4, Gösta Berling, the poet. But that's all for this installment. Goodbye for now.